Here we are with Project Smurf Juice at Garage Built. Personal build on this channel. It's a 89 S15 Jimmy GMC. Has a LQ4 stock long block with a BTR cam and springs. Holley intake, Demon carb. This winter upgrades, what we're doing is putting on a electrical system and putting on a new nitrous system, and also doing the fuel system. We'll get to the dash. This had a diamond plate dash at the guy that I got this build from. So me and a buddy located a stock dash and mounted that in there. And as far as the wiring, got this ACR panel switch with fuse and relay with wiring harness to redo the wiring. And as you can see, I'll grab the light here, reran all the wiring, organized it, taped it together, made it nice and easy to identify something if we have a problem. If we pop in fuses, okay, we pop the fuse to this wire, we know what that controls. There's no guessing on what wire controls what. For the switch panel, we're mounting the switches right up here overhead, so they'll have easy access for the driver. Just has a 6014 MSD box in here controlling the ignition and everything for the motor. And I'll show you the wiring that we took out of this in the old dash. There's the diamond plate dash that I was telling you that the previous owner had in it. And there's his wiring job. I'm not kidding here, you can see pictures. It almost looked this bad underneath the dash as it does sitting here on the floor. Wires just everywhere. You know, you can't tell what wire goes to what. So if you were having an electrical issue or problem, you wouldn't really know where to go. It makes it really difficult for your build. And other upgrades we're doing, like I said, the fuel system. Again, the previous owner had a fuel cell mounted in here. So for me to pass tech at tracks and stuff, I had to build a metal box to go around the fuel cell to kind of contain the fuel cell from the driver. Which, in the end, to make it safer for me and easier to pass tech and stuff, I just decided to get a stock fuel tank, get a stock sending unit. I'll show you the stock tank right here. We kind of got it laying underneath the build, just sitting on some boxes so we can mock up the fuel lines and kind of get them where we need to get them ran to. We're going to be running a MagnaFuel 500 fuel pump on this build. And for the return, my plans were the sending unit, it goes with this tank, has 4 outlets. So this will be your vent tube, which I'm going to keep as my vent tube. And my plans were to block off these 2 lines and use this line here as my return, which used to be the feed line for the carburetor motor. It used to be in this Jimmy when it was stock from factory. And here's the old plate that I took off of it, old bar style. and I'll show you what we replaced it with. We ended up buying a nitrous outlet kit, and there's some of the parts that I still have to put on this build. We ended up buying a stinger plate for this build. We got it kind of sitting on there, screws holding the carb down kind of loose, just so we can run the fuel lines, get all the lines where they need to go, because like I said, we're redoing the wiring, so we kind of have to make room and pull wires through this hole in the firewall, pull new lines through, just kind of, you know, it's the tedious stuff now, hooking it all up. And we'll definitely keep the updates coming on this build for 2019 race season. My buddy at CNR Performance is giving me a hand with this build. He's the one that's helping me run the wiring and get it all tucked up nice and neat. Got his neutral safety switch hooked up. And like I said, we put a stock dash in this to get rid of that ugly diamond plate it was in it. And I'll show you what we did for gauges on this build. This is just going to have a RPM tack in it, temp tack, and an oil pressure tack in it. And what I did was took the stock S10 cluster out, because this dash came from an S10. Took that cluster out of there, mounted the gauge. I'll pull this light up here so it'll make it easier for you guys to see. Mounted the gauge down in here. And what I plan on doing is going and getting this plastic board that I think Home Depot has. It's like an 1/8 inch thick that comes in little 4x4 sheets, so I can just trim it around the face of the gauge and the light and kind of cover up all the stuff that I'm not going to be using. Because for my oil and temp gauge, I took out this heater control switch panel right here and took a Dremel to it and made it so the oil gauge can slide right in there and the temp gauge will go right up there. And after we get all these new systems working together as they should, get it all tuned in and running right, the plans are with this build is to get rid of this seat right here and get 2 Kirky seats. And I think that'll look better than having that, even though that seat, it is pretty comfy, but it's just doesn't have that race style that I like and that I want to keep for this build. And like I said, my buddy at CNR Performance there, he's got a late 90s S10 that I'll be videotaping at the track and probably doing maybe a video here or there with him as he's building his, because it's a LQ4 swapped S10 with a turbo on it. And then I have another buddy that I am helping work on his Grand National. It had some rust damage. We're put some floor pans in it, and we're basically just put the rear end back in it with some control arms and stuff. So if you want to keep up with these builds, you can check it out at Instagram. I do a lot more uploading there for the day-to-day stuff. And you can check that out at garage_built with 2 T's. I do more uploads there, and I'm planning on doing more uploads for this 2019 race season. I'll keep you guys updated.